Hi, everyone. I'm really excited about today. We have a special guest with us, Carolina Bellini, who is a registered psychologist back in Brazil and a practicing counsellor in Sydney, Australia. So we're joined with Carolina today, and we're going to be taking a deep dive in expressive therapies, which are an alternative to talk therapy. And if you've been doing talk therapy for a while and you want to explore different types of therapeutic approaches, then have a listen and we can learn and delve into the world of expressive therapy. So as a starting point, Carolina, can you tell us a little bit about how do you define expressive therapies?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here to share a bit of something that I love so much. So thank you, Esha, for the invitation. So as you asked, what is expressive therapies? Expressive therapies is it's an approach that has different techniques. So it could have involved a bit of like painting, a bit of clay, writing, different modalities. Could be dancing as well. Just really having the body involved in some movements as well.
So why should someone do expressive therapies? Why should someone opt to do movement or art
Yeah.
versus just talk therapy and talking through their issues?
Yeah, that is a great question. I believe that a lot of people, they don't feel comfortable talking and expressing themselves verbally. So it's great to have a few different tools for us as counselors just to facilitate that expression for clients. So for those people who don't feel as comfortable talking about their traumas or about their fears, about their issues, expressive therapist could be an amazing approach. And the interesting thing is that it also offers clients that don't have that cannot speak. So they are nonverbal clients, for example. It kind of gives them the chance to express themselves in another way. So they can express themselves through just putting some line colors and shapes in the paper, or just getting their body to move and things like that. So it also provides those people a chance to express themselves, and also can facilitate the expression, the emotional expression of other clients that don't find as comfortable talking as much, for example.
And so a lot of the therapies and the whole foundation around therapy is, there's an event, it triggers an emotion or it triggers a certain thought. And then from that, you have a reaction, right? You either are able to express those emotions and move through them and self-regulate, or you might bottle them up. So let's take anger as an example. You might be going through some real challenges in your life. Can you share an example of how do you use art or like pottery or journaling? How would you, what is a good example of expressing or diffusing anger when using one of these modes of expressions?
Yeah, anger is a interesting one to think. Some people consider angry as an emotion, and being an emotion, you can really see that anger can be held inside our bodies. So when you give the body a chance to sort of explore that and externalize that, it can be very useful and very beneficial as well. So say, for example, if I see a person that has been struggling with anger, clay is a very good one to work with anger, because it's funny with the clay, you cannot control the clay. You can try to do different things with the clay, but the clay also dictates a bit about what you're going to do. So when you invite the client to explore what they are feeling through the clay, then the clay can actually give you a few different answers. So if the client is feeling really angry about something and you ask the client, do you think that maybe you could express how you're feeling with this piece of clay? It can be really magical and fascinated what comes from that. And then the person will be taking all that anger, not all of it, but can take a bit of the anger out of their bodies and sort of look at that. And then from that, start processing what it is and why it's there. Because it's also important for us to think that the anger is there to protect us from something. So when you can actually externalize that, it sort of creates an opportunity to have another look at that through like another perspective.
Well, that's an interesting
If that
point.
makes sense.
So anger or any other emotion or feeling can also be there to protect us from something.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? How does
Yeah.
anger protect us?
Yeah, for example, it's a bit similar to fear, but the angry is a response from something that we have experienced. For example, let me think. Could be you're in a relationship and something has happened and now you feel angry with that person. So when you feel angry at that person, you can understand that as a defensive response.
Mm.
So it can actually be protecting you from other consequences that could bring as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And so where should someone start on expressive therapies? Is it something that you always need a coach or a counselor therapist for, or is it something that a person can just like pick up on their own and go with it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Expressive therapies is a very gentle approach. It's a very invitational approach. So, for example, if I feel that a client might be interested in exploring that, I will invite the client to see how they feel about maybe getting in touch with, I don't know, a bit of painting, for example, and then the person can start that exploration. And I think when you start that exploration, during like a counseling session, you know that you are in a safe space. So I think that the key thing about starting that exploration while you are in therapy is that you're sure that that's a safe space for that exploration. It doesn't mean that you cannot do it with ourselves on your own, for example. You can, but then it's a bit different. And you also need to make sure that you're doing that in a self space. So if you can create yourself a safe space to do that, that's one of the most important things. So you can do a bit of journaling, for example. If you had a very challenging day, you can, when you get home, try to write about how your day was and the things you felt and your emotions and things like that. So you can also, again, externalize all those feelings, emotions, and thoughts in a piece of paper. So you kind of get a different perspective of how your day was, for example. So you can do that on your own. But I think it's also very important to do that while you are in a counseling session, because then you will have a person that has been trained to sort of guide you through that process and to facilitate that process as well, because you never know what you might encounter. So you might need someone there to sort of facilitate that encounter.
I guess what you draw,
Mm-hmm.
paint, create, is there then a process of sort of introspecting on that? How do you provide guidance to someone on, say, for example, I'm with you and I'm trying to process resentment as an emotion and I've drawn something. Are we analyzing what we create, or there's no analysis? There's just kind of an offloading experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as a gentle approach, we will not try to focus on analyzing what you have created, but we will actually focus on the process. So we will focus not on the result. So I always say that you don't need to be an artist to try a bit of expressive therapies or art therapies, for example, because the aim is not the final product. It's actually what happens in the process. So what happened while you were exploring your feelings? So how did you feel sort of putting those colors in the paper? Not like, why did you choose the yellow, but like, oh, why do you think the yellow is there? Does that want to tell you something? Because as a counselor, I really believe that we hold so much knowledge and so much healing in our bodies. So when we have the opportunity to sort of like externalize what is within our bodies, we kind of have the chance to look at that again and try to understand from what you have created.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So any last suggestions for you for someone who might be thinking about trialing expressive therapies as a bit of a complement to everything else that they're doing in the path of self-exploration? What is the starting point for this?
Yeah, so people can definitely look for a registered counselor or a registered art therapist, for example, to start with, and they can sort of have the person to facilitate and guide them to do that self-exploration. And if they feel like if they want to, like a really gentle approach to this as well, they could start just being a little bit like familiarized with those things at home. So if you can get, for example, you can have like a art response journal at home. So if you've had a very big day, very challenging day, and you're feeling all these emotions inside of you, don't know what to do with them, get a piece of paper or get your art journal and just do whatever you want with that and live it. So
Yeah.
don't fixate on that, but just live it. And that's a way to make the energy flow in the body to
Yeah.
sort of take what's in here and put it somewhere else, and then that's it. So you don't need to like overthink about what happened, but you're actually like putting somewhere else and just leaving it there. And then if you feel that, no, I would like to explore a bit more, or I feel that this could be a nice approach that I would like to take a dive in or something like that, then I would definitely suggest looking for a registered counselor or a registered expressive arts therapist that can definitely help you in that journey, that self-exploration journey.
I think as we spoke today about this modality or this channel of expression,
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking that one of the emotions that's the hardest to talk about is actually hatred. Because as humans, we feel a lot of emotions, and hatred is one of them that brings up then anger and shame. And it's the hardest to express because we don't want to accept the fact that we could hate something. Like it's such an extreme emotion. And so as you were talking, I was just thinking about how interesting there are certain things that trigger that emotion in me of just extreme like repulsion or hatred, and how much easier it would be for me to draw that out, like you said, in some sort of journal, like an art journal, versus having to communicate that verbally to another person, even if they're a counselor or a psychologist. So very, very fascinating, and really encourage our listeners to explore this as part of their whole, realm of different things that they're trialing as they go down the path of self-exploration and as personal development. So I just want to say thank you for your time today. I think we got some great learnings and insights around expressive therapies, and good luck to all our listeners that are on this path of personal development. Thank you.
Thank you, Esha. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.